Hi, everyone. I'm Shartia Brantley, Deputy New York Bureau Chief and Senior Editor for Bloomberg Live, and I'm delighted to discuss the importance of representation, Black-owned media, and more with Michele Ghee, CEO of EBONY and Jet. Welcome, Michele.
Hi, Shartia. Great to be here. Thank you for having me today. It's an honor.
Oh, it's an honor to have you. Thank you. I do want to start off with talking about the state of Black-owned businesses over the past year. As we know, 41% of Black-owned businesses in the U.S. closed during February and April 2020, according to the State of Black-owned Small Businesses in America report. And Black-owned businesses received just a sliver of the Paycheck Protection Program funding from the federal government. What do you attribute to these grim stats?
Yeah, listen, times are tough for everyone, and especially Black Americans, and specifically women, because we are the number one entrepreneurial growth segment in the world, and so we're growing faster. And the reason we're growing faster, let's not move to the side, because we really haven't found our way in corporate America. So that's not going to stop us, right? So we're starting. It was astounding to me that 90% of Black-owned businesses, female Black-owned businesses, couldn't get any of the money floating around because they had one employee. So the rules were not kind to them. And so they closed their doors. And then think about the second piece of that. A lot of them are in the service business, and that's the first business that closed. So it was a double down. And then we're getting sick from COVID. It really was a tough time. But I can tell you, Shartia, we're still standing. We're still standing because our history will not allow us to fail.
And with that, with the pandemic and, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and just, the sparks and calls for racial and economic justice, stakeholders now expect more from corporations, right? Investors, employees, customers want organizations and their senior ranks to reflect the communities they serve. So why is it so hard to bring about this change in this new environment we find ourselves in?
Ah, the big sigh, the big sigh. They say that's what they want, right? And they actually have the power to do it. My thing is this is it's just good business. If I am trying to target the growing economy, then I have to target people that look different. In 2025, 50% of the workforce will be brown. And so, how do I speak to them? How do I market to them? How do I sell to them? How do I collect data and be able to understand that if I don't have anyone in the room that looks like who I'm speaking to? It is so frustrating, even to see on the consumer side ads. I was like, they don't know me. Walking into a store and I go to the beauty aisle, they don't know me because there's nothing for me. And so, who is on the teams? Who did their geo targeting? I mean, it's really, really just it's going to be a matter of good business and sustainability if you don't have the right people at the table, which brings up a whole nother issue, Shartia, which is the pipeline, how to build it, how HR really doesn't have any power, right? How we're hiring chief diversity officers, and it's just entitled only because you show me their operating budget and I show you their value to the company. And so I'm looking at all of these things and knowing that corporate America is still not serious about diversity. They're just not. They can't be, because I can look and see what they're doing around people and know that they're not.
So how do we get them to do the work? Because it's been a year of pledges and commitments, and people are ready to move from words to action. So how do we go about bringing that sustainable change if we're not seeing the accountability and the change we need to see at this time?
It has to start from the top. Like, it just has to start from the top, and not being nice and not being good intentions. Like my grandmother would tell me, baby, people with good intentions, don't marry them, don't hang out with them, because if they can't activate that, then it means nothing, right? Somebody with great potential, and when they die with great potential, they've done nothing. And so if it doesn't start from the top with measurable actions, when you tie your actions to money, people move. When you tie people's action to their bonuses and how they live and where they vacation, you will see a difference. And those companies that are actually tying diversity to people's performance and who they're hiring and what happens, you're seeing companies move and change. And so I like, this is a business proposition. It's not how I feel and, oh, it's amazing. No, it really is business. So tie it to your business. Give your people that are in charge of diversity, give them real opportunity to be successful. Don't let it be just entitled. I have a lot of friends that are like, oh, I took this great role. They get there, they're like, man, I was straight hoodwinked because I didn't get the tools, the staff, the money. I didn't get to build the strategy that I said. So it has to start from the CEO level. They have to be committed. They have to understand the numbers and data, and they have to allow their people to activate and then back it up. Right. When I go ask you for help, don't get ghost. Don't return my call. And so I'm calling on all of the folks that are in the C-suite, and it's people that don't look like us, because we already know there's only 1% or less in the C-suite. So we need our brothers and sisters that don't look like us, that are in high positions, to really make this a priority and then measure it and let people know they will be held accountable if it does not happen.
Let's talk about that. There are so few Black leaders in the C-suite. Why is it their responsibility to spark these uncomfortable conversations when our numbers are so few?
I didn't see. I didn't say it was our responsibility to spark it. I said it's our responsibility to fight to make sure that when they go, they get what they were promised, right? That they're able to move and work and bring their expertise to the table, and then raise their hand when that doesn't happen. Listen, I've been in many places, and I felt like it was my responsibility to hire everyone that looked different, to just like, wait a minute, like, I'm the low person on the totem pole. That's just not my responsibility. It's your responsibility too. And yes, we're still in a place that we have to raise our hand. We have to bring things to attention. We have to fight for the cause. We have to build underground railroads still today, right? And so it's 2 or 3 or 4 jobs for people of color, because we're trying to do so many things, but it is not our responsibility. It's our responsibility to do our job great, but to make sure that we're honest and give feedback when we can. But it really is the people that are running the company. It's their responsibility.
Now, we've had some good news of late. Rosalind Brewer recently named the CEO of Walgreens Boots Alliance. Tashonda Brown Duckett is now president and CEO of TIAA. Fortune 500 companies joining a very small community of Fortune 500 CEOs. Are you encouraged by what we're seeing right now?
I mean, listen, when you can name them on one hand, no, I'm not like, it really is. What it says to me is that the corporate community is not rewarding people based on their contribution. It's not based on their ability to, because we see women are in great positions. They're CEO, they're head of HR, they're the CFO. And we know that those positions, head of sales, they can transition easily, general counsel, into running a company. And we're not given an opportunity because those jobs are saved, they're sacred, and they're handed down generationally to people that people are comfortable with, that maybe are right. And so the people that are hiring folks that look different, think differently. I'll give you an example. Like, I don't know Mark Cuban, but he went outside of his comfort zone, hired someone who headed diversity, right, for AT&T, and he made her the president. She's doing an amazing
Cynthia
job
Marshall.
because she, absolutely, because she's doing, and she had the skill set. And so what I would say is this: don't have a different set of rules for me to get the job than you do for someone else, right? Don't make it about being comfortable. Make it about getting the best result because someone has earned that. This is the second issue that I have. Research says 80% of women don't ask for what they've earned, because they have this expectation, because we're polite and we're kind and strategic. Like, we don't get to, we're not on the golf course doing all the things, but we have to learn to say, listen, these are my results. I have them. These are the people that said great things about me, right? That I keep, I ask, I acquire. And these are the reasons why I should have that job. We have to start asking for what we've earned. And when we don't get it and there's no path to that, we have to walk in faith and not fear, and sometimes go where we can have that.
And what role does unconscious bias, in your view, play into this lack of C-suite representation that we need to see?
Man, it's not only in the C-suite. It penetrates every single fabric of corporate America. I just took recently a class at Cornell University to get my diversity and inclusion certificate because I wanted to better understand, because I'm always popping off at the mouth. I was like, let me have some numbers. Let me be able to back some of this up. And the most astounding thing to me was that we can process 11 million pieces of data at one time, our brain can. And what we do when it comes to diversity is we judge people based on 4 pieces of criteria. And that criteria comes from something that was uncomfortable, something that was negative. So we're judging people based on an experience we had with someone else that wasn't positive, and they don't even realize they're doing it. It just feels natural and organic to interact. So one of the things that the class taught is that companies aren't going through the process of allowing people to really get to know one another. When you walk in, you can see people's family, and a picture of their children are just like your children. They're all playing soccer or basketball or running track, because we're so busy chasing numbers, and our our delivery has to be on point every quarter, that we're not taking time to do humanistic servant leadership things. And it's one of the things that, and we're going to talk about, Ebony, but we start our meetings with a moment of gratitude. What are we grateful for? What happened in your family? Because our families are the same. It's the only way we're going to get past those 4 things that really do exist.
So, with that being said, then what role does having mentors and sponsors and champions and allies in place to help ensure that Black women in particular and other underrepresented groups get those opportunities that they are more than qualified for?
Yeah, I love to mentor folks, especially if they reach out and they're like, I really need you. I shouldn't say mentor. I advocate and sponsor people. I have conversations, because mentorship, I believe, the world's moving so fast. It's really difficult to have a mentor relationship, right? That is a rare occurrence now, because you have to get to know each other intimately. But I can't have an advocate or a champion or a sponsor sitting at a table when I'm not invited to the room. A young woman called me. She spent 8 years at a company, and she's like, I have this amazing advocate. So I started digging in. I was like, but you've been in the same position. You're not happy, but you have an amazing advocate. Yes, she's always speaking up for me. I said, you have the wrong person, because she's not able to get anything done for you. So oftentimes, because of someone's title and they have a seat at the table, if things aren't moving, you have the wrong person. They might be an advocate, but they can't advocate for you in a way that you're going to get something done. And it hit her like a ton of bricks. I said, you got to find another person. You got to find another story. You have to build it for them. You have to be strategic enough to not allow someone telling you that they're championing for you, and you sit in a position and nothing is happening. So my advice, my feedback is, make sure that you have a champion that can win for you. Not based on them winning for themselves. A lot of times, as a matter of fact, I think the number is 82% of times decisions are made about most employees when you're not in the room. So if you don't have someone who knows your story, who can tell it, articulate it, and then ask for something on your behalf, then you're never going to get to where you want to be.
That's a good point. I always tell people, if you're only known by your team, you have failed. You need to create relationships outside of your core team. And that's part of that, not being in a room and having those additional voices to vouch for you and who you are and what you can do. Well, Michele, this brings me to your personal journey. And I had the honor of seeing you present recently at a meeting, and you talked about 12-3-1. Can you expand on that for the audience?
Yeah, I would love to. I really truly hope that this really brief story blesses somebody, opens someone's eyes. So I have been an executive for many years. I was the #1 salesperson for some of the most recognized companies in the world, CNN, Annie, the History Channel. And I went from company to company. So I spent 12 years at 3 companies with the same exact job title. And I'm like, but I'm amazing. And I'm great, and I'm delivering everything. But what I did is I didn't take a look inside of myself. I wanted everyone else to change, and I wasn't being strategic, and I wasn't understanding the culture. I didn't understand that my frontline manager actually made all the decisions and set the culture for the department. See, I'm living in the culture for the company. kumbaya, this and that. But my frontline manager is kind of a jerk and don't really like me, but I wasn't dealing with that. And so when I understood that, I started playing a different game, Shartia. And then I went to a different company with a new vision, new attitude, understanding that culture eats strategy. And I was able to move really quickly. And I've been on a journey ever since.
Now, Bridgman Sports and Media named you CEO in January. How are you settling into your role as CEO at this time?
Well, I have to say this. So February 27 of 2020, my job was eliminated. I was a really high level executive. I felt performing, it wasn't a great fit, but I found myself unemployed. Then I got COVID. I was sick, and I had a really long conversation with God. I was like, okay, what is happening, right? And I doubted myself, and I did. So this whole thing. So there was this whole lead up to that. And when I got a call from Eden Bridgman, actually a text message, I had to Google her because I didn't even know the family. Like Junior Bridgman is one of the richest unknown people known to mankind because he played in the NBA. When I Googled her, I said, "Oh man!" And we had a really transparent conversation about legacy and this community and our commitment and us wanting to make sure that whatever we purchased or acquired or did together, that we knew that we wanted to be servant leaders to this community, to give them an opportunity to see the best of themselves. And when Ebony became available, she called me. She's like, Michele, it might be Ebony and Jet. And my mouth I was like, really? Like, that would be amazing. 75 years of history, of telling stories, of being bold enough to put Emmett Till's open casket on the cover of the best and the worst of the worst. This was the first Black magazine that wanted African Americans to see a true reflection of themselves. It's an honor every day that I wake up and have an opportunity to fight for this brand, to fight for this community, to fight to hire Black people to tell Black stories. Black media companies matter, because if I don't do it, who will? And so it's been a journey. It's the best journey of my entire life, that I get to do something that I don't call work every single day for a community that I love immensely.
Full disclosure, I grew up reading Ebony and Jet from cover to cover. What is your vision for these iconic brands? Oh, yeah.
So, the vision is this. I'm creating a vision based on data, research, and insight that I know our community does. We spend more than 60 hours a week on our phones. We consume more content, but more importantly, we create more content than anybody. And guess what? We are not being paid for it. It really drives me bananas that the world is monetizing, right, billions of dollars a quarter on what we create and give to the world. Can I take some of that? Can I give someone a platform and people a platform in order to tell stories, create content, so I can make a really bold statement? Ebony Studios, Ebony Content, Ebony TV, whatever it is that we call it, we will be in the content business, because there are so many stories that need to be told, and there are so many people that need to tell them, that need to take care of their families too. So we are
Mhm.
doubling down. So not only are we going to be in the content business, we're going to be in the small Black business, small Black people business as well. It is my number one priority.
Mm. So, how has then the pandemic and, as I mentioned earlier, these increased calls for racial and economic justice fueling? You kind of hinted on it, but what are you doing specifically to move things forward?
I mean, listen, every day that we wake up and we're able to tell stories, shine a light, dig deeper, put somebody on the cover, hire another journalist that is an amazing talent but was overlooked in the marketplace, we're doing something good, because we're allowing a space and a place to celebrate Black life. That is what our tagline is going to be. That is what we're going to do. Every single day we're going to celebrate. And then, and I think about it, okay, how do you celebrate police brutality, people getting killed in the street? We're going to celebrate the fact that we rose up and we're done. Like, we've had enough. We're not taking it anymore. I'm going to celebrate the fact that, there's a little girl who has an opportunity to be something great, because her dad, we're standing on his shoulders and on how he was senselessly killed in George Floyd, right? So there's so many things that we can still celebrate, how we rebound and pivot. how we come together, how the world has. So we really want to celebrate Black life. And if we can do that, if we can show the good, the beauty, the brilliant, the bold, the folks that, are overlooked. I always say, like, I worked in corporate America and I'm not a bad looking person, 5'10", like I'm all right. And I was invisible for so many years. How is that possible? I don't like that. It's not a good thing. And so I'm tired of people being invisible. I'm tired of having to check your culture at the door when they hire you to do something. They're like, oh, I'm not comfortable. Oh, get along with the team and quietly assimilate. It's whispered to you. I don't like that's not, no, it's inappropriate. And I want to make sure that we're building a company where people don't have to do that. And I'm also want to make sure that we're telling those stories. Good intentions doesn't get the job done, because a lot of CEOs have great intentions, but they don't have the nerve to make it happen. And so I want to hold all of those folks accountable, and I want to give people a platform in order to tell those stories.
Hmm. Now I know, Byron Allen. I know Junior Bridgman also, signed on to, some of the letters recently, advocating for more dollars to be spent with Black-owned media, and explaining that difference between Black-owned media versus Black-targeted media.
Yeah.
What has been the response at Ebony and Jet on this?
I'll tell you, and I'm gonna give a couple of brands a shout out, just because before Byron called the marketplace to task, and he is not wrong. Okay, he is absolutely right. It's like, you can't want to advertise to my children every single day and want them to buy your products, but you don't want to give them a job. Like, that's not acceptable. And so that's all we're saying, is like, you can't target most of the ads, most of the creativity, most of the things are targeted towards this audience, but then you don't want to help them succeed. So Byron did a great thing. He called the marketplace. He wasn't wrong. How he did it, listen, maybe people aren't comfortable with that, but a lot of brands stood up. But the brands that stood up before that, Mark Pritchard at P&G, Michelle G, how can I help you? How can I support the brand? He's authentic because he understands that his business is reliant on this audience. He hires people, he's creating content. And so, when Mark Pritchard calls you, it's like, okay, I really might have a business proposition here. Coca-Cola called me. They're like, we're committing millions of dollars to the brand agencies. So we are in such an amazing position. Now we have to deliver, right? I have to make sure that I'm giving them and that I'm being a great partner. I'm just not going to take and not give them something that's amazing. But the marketplace has responded in an amazing way. I'm so grateful. I'm so blessed. This brand is so blessed. Eden and I are overwhelmed sometimes by the love that this brand has received over the last 3 or 4 months.
Mhm. We're running out of time. What is one thing our esteemed audience can do today to make their workplace more inclusive?
Yeah. You know what? I think I really believe that if you get to know people and not put them in buckets. So that's the first thing, right? Get to know folks. Like, don't be the person that's like the 4%, like I'm judging you based on a bad thing. The other thing that I think that you can really, really honestly do is to be human, right? Be human. Like, we're all human. We all hurt and love, and a lot of times, we're asked to do things. The last thing I would say is this: don't expect people to be different or to have to get along. I think that if we welcome difference and if we welcome different ideas, then we're all going to benefit from that. So that's me on that side, right? The 1231. Me as a CEO, I say this. I say CEOs have to measure and hold accountable and understand that diversity is a business proposition. And we hear it all the time, that it's not a good deed or a good act. That if you're giving money away and you're doing all these things, where's it going? Did it impact somebody? Did it help their business? Really? Did it not? It's not just a tax write-off. So I believe that my side as a CEO, that I have to hire, hold accountable, and be better. And it's not just having good intentions, but actually activating and following through and measuring to make sure that what we're doing, what we're saying actually comes to fruition.